Hey everyone, today we need to talk about what federal investigators just dragged out of California's welfare system because almost nobody is connecting the dots. So just imagine this with me. It's before dawn in Los Angeles County. A few hours ago, the state loaded food benefits onto millions of accounts, and right now, a man is standing at an ATM holding a stack of blank white plastic cards. Every card carries the stolen account number of a real family. A mother in Fresno, a senior in San Diego, a household in Kern County. He drains them one after another before those families even wake up. Federal agents would eventually tie roughly 210 victims to this one man's cards. But here's the thing. He's not the story. He's a symptom. Because the story is the man in charge of the system those cards were robbing, a kid from San Francisco. His parents split early and his mother worked multiple jobs to keep the family afloat. In 1992, with backing from a family friend named Gordon Getty, he opens a wine shop on Fillmore Street. By 36, he's mayor. By 2019, he's governor of the biggest economy in America, running the largest food stamp program in the country, 5.5 million people, more than $1 billion a month. Every dime of it federal money. And when Washington finally asked to see the books, his state said no and went to federal court to keep it that way. Who am I talking about? Gavin Newsom. But here's what nobody is connecting. There's one number buried in this fight, a number California's own government put in writing that exposes the entire thing. And whether you live in California or 3,000 miles away, part of this tab has your name on it. It starts with those white plastic cards. So here's what was happening while those cards were being printed. Go back to the middle of 2021. Thieves were pulling less than $100,000 a month out of California's benefit accounts. Annoying, manageable, then it exploded. By the time the state's own Department of Social Services added it up, the losses had blown past $10 million a month. In January 2025 alone, 1 month, more than $14 million was stolen. The state's running total since 2021, $439 million. Federal prosecutors counted 310 million stolen between June 2022 and January 2026 in their cases alone. Now, how do you rob a card that never leaves someone's pocket? Skimmers, crews, many of them tied to Romanian organized crime according to the Justice Department, planted hidden devices on checkout terminals, gas pumps, and ATMs, copied the card numbers of people swiping for groceries, and re-encoded them onto cloned cards. Sometimes blank white plastic. Then they'd descend on ATMs in the pre-dawn hours, right after the state released benefits, and empty the accounts before the rightful owners had breakfast. In March of this year, federal prosecutors in San Diego announced charges against more than 50 defendants. The U.S. attorney put it bluntly, these criminals target people living one paycheck away from crisis. And let's be clear about who got hurt first. Poor families who walked into a grocery store and found zero on their card. Taxpayers covered the reimbursements. But here's the part that should bother you more than the crime itself. The arrests are the exception. In Kern County, $6.8 million was stolen. 2 cases were filed. Less than $80,000 came back. 2. And when reporters asked the state how much stolen money had been recovered statewide, the answer was that California doesn't track it. 439 million out the door, and nobody's keeping score on what came back. Hold on to that number, by the way, the 439 million, because the bill sitting at the center of this story makes it look like a rounding error, and it was put in writing by someone inside Newsom's own government. But the skimmer crews were only ever the visible leak. The bigger one wasn't at the ATMs at all. It was inside the paperwork, and in the summer of 2025, Washington started measuring it. On June 27, 2025, the USDA published every state's food stamp report card, something called the payment error rate, which measures how often a state pays out the wrong amount to the wrong people. California's grade, 10.98%. Sit with that. Roughly 1 out of every $9 flowing through the largest food stamp program in America went out incorrectly. And this wasn't underpayment penny pinching. 9 full points of that was overpayment. Money out the door. Now run the math with me. California paid out more than $12.5 billion in CalFresh benefits in a single year. At an 11% error rate, you're talking about well over $1 billion misfired in 1 year. One state, one program, 1 year. Now, to be fair, and this matters, Washington's own paperwork says an error rate is not a measure of program fraud. Most of this isn't criminals. It's wrong income figures, missed cross-checks, county workers fumbling complex rules. Which means the state's best available defense here is, we're not crooked, we're just sloppy with $1 billion. Hold that thought. 44 states got ordered into corrective action plans that summer, California among them. But for 60 years, none of this ever cost a state a dime because Washington paid every dollar of benefits no matter how badly a state ran the program. Therefore, Congress changed the rules. In July 2025, days after that report card dropped, a new federal law said that starting in fiscal 2028, states with sloppy books pay a share of the benefits themselves. Sliding scale, 6% error rate triggers it. Above 10%, you're in the maximum bracket. California's number, again, 10.98. So which year's report card decides the bill? That's the detail almost everyone missed. The law keys the penalty to the fiscal 2025 or 2026 error rate, and fiscal 2025 ended on September 30th, 2025. The test was already over before most people in Sacramento admitted there was a test. And here's where it gets interesting. Inside Newsom's own government, somebody ran the exact arithmetic you and I just did and wrote down what it means for California. The figure has 9 zeros in it, and it is not a one-time payment. Because the same month Congress attached real money to those error rates, Washington asked California one simple question about its books. And California didn't answer the question. California lawyered up. Rewind to February 2025. The USDA, under Secretary Brooke Rollins, asks every state for its food stamp rolls. Who's enrolled so the feds can hunt fraud? By July, it's a formal demand. 5 years of records, names, social security numbers, addresses, immigration status. California's response was to join 21 other states and Washington, D.C. in federal court to block it. And look, be fair for a second, because the argument isn't crazy. Handing Washington a database of more than 40 million low-income Americans, immigration status attached, is exactly the kind of thing civil liberties lawyers lose sleep over. And the states argued it would fuel an immigration dragnet, not a fraud hunt. In October, a federal judge in San Francisco agreed enough to block the demand while the case plays out. So maybe this is principle, maybe. Watch what happens next. The government shuts down. Food benefits freeze nationwide. Courts have to force the USDA to crack open a $4.5 billion contingency fund just to get November benefits moving, while 5.5 million Californians sit in limbo. And on November 6th, in the middle of that chaos, a letter lands on Newsom's desk from Young Kim, a Republican congresswoman from his own state, formally demanding he investigate fraud in CalFresh. Her ammunition? The Government Accountability Office's finding that improper food stamp payments topped $10.5 billion nationwide in a single year. And the single biggest program inside that nation is the one Gavin Newsom runs. Then, December 2nd, a televised cabinet meeting. Rollins lays it out. 29 states handed over their data. 21, California, New York, Minnesota, still refusing. She announces the administration will begin to stop moving federal funds to the holdouts. And she claims the data from compliant states has already surfaced hundreds of thousands of dead people still collecting benefits, plus people drawing benefits in 2 states at once. Claims, I'll note, she did not present evidence for. Newsom fired back within hours, calling the move morally repugnant, his office sneering that they no longer take this administration's words at face value. 2 governments, 1 database, 42 million people in the middle. But while Sacramento was busy framing all of this as a political stunt, a verdict was being typed up that they couldn't wave away. It didn't come from Brooke Rollins, it didn't come from Fox News, or a Republican congresswoman, or anyone on Trump's payroll. It was coming from inside the building, which brings us to the part they really did not want getting out. 10 days after that cabinet meeting, December 12th, 2025, a report landed in Sacramento from the one office no governor can dismiss as partisan because it exists for exactly one purpose, so California can police California. The California State Auditor, Grant Parks, report number 2025-601, and in it, for the first time ever, Parks added the Department of Social Services, the agency that runs CalFresh, to the state's official high-risk list, concluding it met our criteria to be designated as a high-risk agency. The state's own watchdog, not flagging some podunk office, flagging the department that moves $1 billion federal dollars a month, specifically because its benefit errors are so bad they now threaten the state's finances. The audit even identified the main culprit: inaccurate income reporting that basic cross-checks should have caught. Now connect the 3 things you've watched in this video. A theft epidemic the state was warned about, an error rate in the worst federal bracket, and a full year spent in court making sure nobody outside Sacramento could inspect the rolls. That's not 3 stories, that's one pattern. Protect the machine, not the money. And here's the part that proves they knew the whole time. Back in 2023, California's own nonpartisan press, CalMatters, documented that the state had ignored warnings and slow-walked the obvious fix, chip-secured cards, while the skimming exploded. Security upgrade bills died in an assembly committee without so much as a vote. Then, this past January, Newsom held a victory lap announcing the new chip cards had cut benefit theft by 83%. Read that again. The fix worked, which is the most damning fact in this entire story, because it means it would have worked in 2022 and 2023 and 2024 while $439 million walked out the door. Even his own side isn't applauding. The Western Center on Law and Poverty, an anti poverty group, not a conservative outfit, reviewed his budget response and called it dramatically short of the scale of the crisis. And if you think CalFresh is a one off, the same auditor's report flags roughly $513 million lost to unemployment fraud in 2024 alone, which leaves the number. The one from the very beginning, the one California's own government put in writing. It's not the 310 million the feds counted. It's not the 439 million the state admitted. The auditor wrote down a figure with a B in it and a date. So when you put all of this together, there's really only one conclusion. And it's the one Sacramento has spent a year hoping you'd never reach. And here it is, the part they've been hoping you'd never put together. Buried in that state auditor's report is the price tag for everything you just watched, up to $2.5 billion per year, starting October 2027. That's the auditor's own certified estimate of what California's error rate is about to cost. And the legislature's own nonpartisan analyst pegs the benefit share alone at around $2 billion annually. Every year, the rate stays in the worst bracket. Now stack the three details that turn this from bad into unforgivable. 1. The bill is keyed to the fiscal 2025 and 2026 error rates, and fiscal 2025 already ended. The test was over before the cleanup began, and the USDA publishes that new number any week now. Watch what Sacramento does when it drops. 2. Congress actually built in a lifeline. States with error rates above 13.34% get their penalty delayed for years. California at 10.98 is in the worst possible spot in America. Bad enough for the maximum bill. Not bad enough for the mercy. 3. The calendar. The first invoice arrives in October 2027. Gavin Newsom's term ends in January 2027, 9 months earlier. The man at his budget podium in May, bragging that California is cutting deficits but not cutting corners, fought the audit, sat on the warnings, banked the victory lap, and the tab is addressed to whoever sits in that chair next and to every taxpayer underneath them. So name the pattern because you've now seen all of it. Hide the books, ignore the warnings, fight the audit, leave the bill. You now know more about where this is headed than most people watching cable news tonight. And remember the man at the ATM before dawn holding someone else's groceries on a stack of white plastic? The feds caught him. 50 plus defendants, courtrooms, mugshots. Nobody is getting arrested for the other side of this story. The crews stole millions and got handcuffs. The system misplaced billions and hired lawyers to keep the lights off. That's not a safety net. That's a machine protecting itself. Drop a comment below. What was the moment this clicked for you? The white cards, the 1 in 9, or the bill with Newsom's exit date on it? Breakdowns like this don't stop, and neither do we. Subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop asking questions. See you in the next one.